From the studios of Books in Motion, this is Caryn Hoaglund, reading The Crescents, Book 5 in the Book of Deacon Saga, by Joseph R. Lallo. Now let's begin with The Crescents. Prologue. The sun had only just risen. It had yet to chase the cold of night away. That was for the best. This close to the desert, it didn't take long for the heat of day to become punishing. Best to get to the shore quickly and start fishing. Dilly-dallying only meant traveling under the baking sun before finally reaching the relief of the cool breeze of the North Crescent Sea. And so, he hopped onto his horse and set off toward the pier, where his fishing boat and the rest of his crew would be waiting. Blindall squinted at the sky, eyeing a cloud creeping toward the sun. He tried to will it there, to reduce the glare upon the white sand that made up the path. Sometimes he questioned why he'd moved away from the forest. The desert, even the very fringe of one, was no place for an elf. Indeed, neither was the sea, though of the two, he preferred the waves. But then, that was the point, wasn't it? So few of his countrymen had ventured beyond the isthmus and braved the wilds of North Crescent. Every day of work here was worth a dozen back home. Fewer boats vying for fish, fewer suppliers for local markets. It was trouble, to be sure, but it was worth it. A long, dark form swept along the ground. He grinned. Finally, a cloud was braving the sun. But no. When he looked to the sky, there was no counterpart anywhere near the sun. Moreover, the shadow moved too quickly to be a cloud. He tugged the reins of his horse and watched the mote of darkness flitting over the dunes of the desert that opened up like a sandy sea to the north. He shielded his eyes. A shifting, dancing distortion hung in the air above the dunes. It blurred and curled the view of anything near the surface of the sand. He couldn't be sure, but there seemed to be little puffs of sand bursting into the air and wafting away in the wind. "You're seeing things," he muttered to himself. The shadow slid along until it was gone from view, but he couldn't bring himself to resume his journey. Instead, he remained atop his horse and strained his vision. Scattered puffs of sand continued to erupt in the distance. They traced a path, the same path the shadow had followed. "Childish superstition," he chided, shaking his head at the notion. "But it will bother me all day if I don't see for myself." The answer was a simple one. It was a herd or pack of some kind. The desert was home to any number of little scampering creatures. They were the same color as the sand, easy to miss at this distance. Those little puffs of sand were kicked up by desert hares, or perhaps those odd little foxes he'd seen about. All he had to do to set his mind at ease was find the tracks they'd left behind. After all, rare was the morning he didn't spot trails crisscrossing the road to the pier. This was simply the first time he'd seen the creatures making one. He waited until he saw one of the puffs beside an isolated bit of scraggly desert grass. With it as a landmark, he could be sure he'd found the right spot. His horse snuffed irritably when he guided it from the packed path to the uneven sands, but it was only a short detour. In minutes, he reached the grass and hopped down to investigate. "That's curious." He knelt and scrutinized the ground. There were no tracks. If anything, there was the opposite of tracks. The sand was unnaturally smooth. The little dips and furrows dug by the breeze had yet to disturb the surface, though each gust shifted things a bit more naturally. If he'd been a minute or two later, the wind
Sample complete. Ready to continue?